My name is Emily, and one night I walked into my house only to find that it had already been sold by my own mother. No warning, no discussion, just papers waiting for me. Have you ever had your family decide something major for you without asking? Share your story in the comments. It was supposed to be a normal family gathering, the kind where everyone pretends to be happy, where smiles look practiced and laughter comes a beat too late. Mom, Linda, sat across the table, chatting with my aunt about the weather as if nothing was wrong. The smell of homemade lasagna filled the room, warm and heavy, mixing with the chatter of distant cousins. None of it registered. All that mattered was the unanswered texts, the quiet all day that hadn't sat right in my chest. Then it happened. "Wait, you're Emily, right?" A voice cut through the noise. Heads turned. A guest, someone barely familiar, looked at me with sudden recognition. The man, still in a crisp button-up like he'd stepped straight out of a meeting, hesitated before continuing. "You're the government advisor, aren't you?" For a second, everything froze. "Yes," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "I work as a policy consultant." A glance around the table followed instinctively. Conversations had stalled. Even the hum of the air conditioner felt loud. Linda's smile slipped. Eyes that had been fixed on the salad bowl darted toward me, then away just as fast. Her lips tightened. "Emily's been doing great with her work, hasn't she?" she added quickly, cheer sharpened with tension. The room shifted. Cousins exchanged looks. An uncle cleared his throat. The air thickened, invisible walls closing in. "Yeah," the man continued, oblivious to the strain. "I've heard good things. Government work, right? Didn't realize you were in that field." A polite smile surfaced, but inside it felt like suffocating. Silence settled again. Mom shifted in her chair, discomfort written all over her posture. "Emily's always been so private," she said, still not looking at me. "Never liked sharing much. You know how she is." No response came right away. Eyes dropped to the plate. This was familiar territory. The comparisons, the quiet judgments, the constant measuring against the golden child of the family. But tonight, something was different. Hearing her voice scramble to smooth things over felt heavier than usual. "I didn't realize your job was so important, Emily," my aunt said, curiosity tangled with judgment. "You could have told us." The chair scraped back before the moment could stretch any further. Standing came abruptly. "I'm stepping outside for a minute," I muttered. "Emily, don't just leave like that," Mom called, but the words didn't slow anything down. Explanations trailed behind as the door closed, but none of it landed. The need to get out overpowered everything else. Cool evening air hit my face, sharp and grounding. Leaning against the porch railing, slow breaths followed, one after another, trying to shake off the sting of it all. They had no idea what it felt like, caught between a family that barely understood and a career that demanded more than it ever gave back. Standing there, the thought wouldn't leave. How long could pretending everything was fine really last? For now, all that mattered was distance. From the table, from the stairs, from the silence that said more than words ever could. And that distance was taken. The moment I walked through my front door, everything felt different. Not the usual comfort of home, but a heavy weight settling straight into my chest. The evening had ended with a cold breeze brushing my face as I left my mom's house, and now the apartment felt suffocating in comparison. I had barely sat down when my phone buzzed again. A glance at the screen was enough. Linda. For what felt like the 100th time since I'd left, she was still trying to reach me. "Why are you doing this?" she texted. "We need to talk, Emily. I'm sorry for how things went down, but you need to come back." The words blurred, anger and exhaustion mixing until it was hard to tell which one hurt more. No reply came. It never would. She always knew how to twist a conversation, how to turn everything around until I was the problem. The phone was tossed onto the coffee table, and leaning back came instinctively, trying to focus on anything else. The reality of the evening still hadn't fully landed. Home didn't feel like rest. It felt like unfinished business. The phone buzzed again. This time it was picked up before there was time to think. Please, Emily, I don't want this to come between us. The message was read once, then again. Same words, same tone, but something about it hit differently this time. The cold, calculated guilt underneath it all was impossible to ignore. Playing her game was no longer an option. Before the phone could be set down, it rang. Not Linda, Sarah. "Hey, Emily," Sarah said, voice calm in a way that felt almost rehearsed. "How are you doing?" "Fine," came the answer, even though it didn't sound convincing. "I know things were weird today," Sarah continued. "People are talking. I just wanted to check on you." Of course they were. The moment I walked out, I'd become the conversation. Still, talking about it felt impossible, not when everything was still raw. "Are you sure you're doing the right thing?" Sarah asked gently. "I mean, it's your mom." The screen was stared at, heartbeat loud in my ears. It wasn't Sarah's fault. She meant well, but hearing the same arguments echoed back made something painfully clear. This wasn't just about Linda anymore. It was about everyone else's expectations. "They always do this," slipped out quietly. "Do what?" Sarah asked. "Make it about them. Make it my fault. They don't listen, Sarah. It's like I don't even get a say." A sigh came through the line. "She's not trying to hurt you. She's just trying to keep the family together." The words landed like a slap. Family. Always the excuse. Always the shield. Standing up abruptly, pacing followed, frustration tightening with every step. "You don't get it," I said. "This isn't just about family. It's about my life, about how they think they get to control it. They don't even know me. Not really." Silence stretched before Sarah spoke again. "I'm not saying you should go back. I just think maybe you don't have to handle this alone. Talk to someone who actually understands." The idea hit harder than expected. It hadn't even crossed my mind. Maybe doing this alone wasn't the answer. "Maybe," came the quiet response, fingers pressing into my temples. The call ended soon after. Going back wasn't an option, but running forever wasn't either. I had barely settled back into my routine when the phone call came. It was from a number I didn't recognize, but something told me I couldn't ignore it, so I picked up. "Hello?" My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "Is this Emily Carter?" The man on the other end spoke with a firm, professional tone. "Yes, who's calling?" "My name is Jack Wilkins. I'm an attorney with Sullivan and Company. I believe we need to discuss your family's financial situation." For a moment, everything went still. "What do you mean?" "I'm handling several matters related to your mother, Linda Carter," he continued. "I realize this may come as a surprise, but there are things you need to be aware of." The word surprise echoed uncomfortably. My mother had always kept her affairs tightly sealed, guarded behind excuses and half-truths. The fact that a lawyer was calling me about her finances set my nerves on edge. "What kind of matters?" "I'd prefer to explain in person. There's quite a bit to go over. Would you be able to come by the office tomorrow?" After a brief hesitation, I agreed. Whatever this was, it felt too serious to ignore. The next day, stepping into the law office brought a strange mix of dread and curiosity. Jack Wilkins was already waiting. His handshake was firm, his expression carefully neutral. "Thank you for coming," he said, gesturing for me to sit. "I'll be direct. Your mother has been concealing significant financial problems for years. This goes beyond the house and the debts you're already aware of." My stomach tightened. Beyond how? He leaned back slightly, folding his hands. "There are offshore accounts, assets and liabilities your mother failed to disclose. She's been managing debts far larger than she's ever admitted." The words hit hard. I had known things weren't right, but this was something else entirely. Memories of her explanations and reassurances flashed through my mind, suddenly hollow. She hid this from me? Anger crept into my voice. Why wouldn't she tell me? Jack met my gaze evenly. It's complicated. There are legal implications, but yes, she kept this from you, and likely from the rest of your family as well. It felt like the floor had dropped away. I had defended her for years, made excuses for her behavior. Now I was being told the truth was far worse. What am I supposed to do with this? The question slipped out before I could stop it. That depends on you, Jack said calmly. If you choose to get involved, I can help you navigate this. But you should know it could become messy. Your mother's future, your family's reputation, all of it could be affected. Sitting there, part of me wanted to walk out and pretend none of this existed. But that wasn't possible anymore, not after everything I'd learned. You said this is bigger than the debts, I said slowly. What else haven't I been told? He hesitated, then spoke carefully. Some property transfers were made under false pretenses. If authorities become involved, criminal charges are a real possibility. Cold spread through me. This wasn't how I thought things would end when I walked out of my mother's house. I had believed I was finally free. Instead, I was standing at the edge of something far darker. I need time to think, I said, rising. I can't jump into something I don't fully understand. Jack nodded. Of course, but understand this. These issues won't resolve themselves. Walking out of the office, a knot formed in my chest. The secrets I'd just uncovered weren't only hers anymore. They belonged to me now, whether I wanted them or not. The drive home was silent, my thoughts spiraling without order. I had spent years protecting her, even when it cost me. Now the truth was forcing its way through everything I thought I knew. By the time I reached my apartment, one thing was clear. This couldn't be ignored. The phone rang again. The screen flashed Linda's name. This was the 4th time today. I let it ring out. After everything, I wasn't ready to hear her voice again. I wasn't ready to feel the weight of her words, her excuses. It was the same routine, guilt, pressure, and her blaming everything on the family situation. It never changed. I hadn't planned on giving in this time, not after everything I'd uncovered. Yet, as soon as I turned my phone off and looked around my apartment, I realized I had no control. The mess I was in wasn't something I could escape. It wasn't just about my mother anymore. It was about every lie, every decision she had kept hidden from me all these years. The weight of it was suffocating. Another buzz interrupted my thoughts. A text from Sarah. Have you talked to her? It's really not good for you to be holding this in. I know things aren't perfect, but you can't shut everyone out. The words stung, and I knew she was right. I couldn't keep running from the truth. But every conversation with Linda felt like a trap, another manipulation. She was good at that, at making me feel responsible. I tossed my phone on the couch and paced the apartment. I needed to figure this out, but everything felt blurry. Each step I took, each decision I made, only made the situation worse. Then my phone buzzed again, this time with a call. I glanced at it. Jack Wilkins, the attorney, the one who had been so matter-of-fact about everything. Reluctantly, I answered. Emily, I need to talk to you about something important, Jack said. I know this isn't easy, but there's more to the story than what we've discussed. My pulse quickened. What now? I've been going through the paperwork, and it's not just about debts and assets anymore, he said. Your mother's been involved in some activities that go well beyond financial mismanagement. This is bigger than I thought, and I think you need to know everything. I gripped the edge of the table. What are you saying? What is she really hiding? Jack hesitated before speaking. There are some off-the-books transactions, potentially illegal activity. I can't give you all the details right now, but you need to understand the situation is much worse than you've been told. My head spun. Illegal? The word didn't fit with the image I had carried my whole life. My mother wrapped up in something criminal? It made no sense. And yet, with every sentence, the ground kept shifting beneath me. I need to know what my next step is, I said. What do I do now? I'm going to help you, Jack replied, but you'll need to decide quickly. This is moving fast, and the legal implications are serious. The call ended, but the confusion stayed. I walked the length of the apartment again, thoughts colliding. Linda had always hidden things from me, but this wasn't just secrecy. This was something darker. I needed more answers, but everything Jack had said felt like fragments of a puzzle with half the pieces missing. A knock at the door made me jump. When I opened it, Sarah stood there, already reading my face. She stepped inside without waiting. "What happened?" she asked. "You look like you're about to explode." "Everything's worse than I thought," I said, exhaustion crashing over me. "Linda's been hiding everything. There's illegal stuff involved. I don't even know where to start." Sarah nodded slowly. I knew it wasn't just about money. There's always more, isn't there? I sank into a chair. The more I find out, the more it feels like I'm losing control of my own life. "Then you need to start making choices," she said, firm but gentle. "You can't fix this overnight, but you have to decide whether you're walking away or stepping in. And if you step in, you need to be ready. It's going to get messy." I stared at my hands. "I don't know if I'm strong enough." "You don't have to do it alone," she said, "but you can't keep avoiding it. You have to choose." Silence settled between us. My entire life had been built on the belief that I knew my mother. Now I saw how thin that belief really was. "I'll handle it," I said finally, steadier than I felt. "But on my terms. I need to confront her. I need the truth, even if it destroys everything." Sarah didn't argue. She just nodded and stood. "I'm here whenever you need me." After she left, I closed the door and leaned against it, breathing deeply. This wasn't just about Linda anymore. It was about the lies, the control, the life that had been hidden from me for years. I picked up my phone and made the call. It was time to face it, time to take my life back. The pressure was suffocating, and I couldn't escape it. Every day it felt like something new was breaking apart. The walls around me seemed to close in. The lies, the secrets, everything my mother had kept hidden were unraveling in front of me, and I couldn't stop it. At work, things were spiraling. My colleagues had started noticing that something was off. I'd been missing deadlines, answering emails late, and avoiding meetings. Every time my phone buzzed, it felt like a weight in my hand. I knew who it was: my mother. She'd been calling nonstop, texting, sending emails, doing everything she could to make me feel guilty. But what was worse than that? The way she had been hiding the truth from me. The debts, the assets, the illegal activity. I had known something was wrong for years, but now I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I couldn't even focus on the numbers on my screen. The emails piled up, the calls kept coming, but all I could think about was Linda. I couldn't stop thinking about what she had done. Every lie she'd told me, every excuse she'd given. It felt like it was eating me alive. I couldn't just ignore it anymore. One afternoon, as I sat at my desk, my phone rang again. Linda. I let it ring out. But the second it stopped, the text message came in. "Emily, you need to listen. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I'm doing everything I can to fix things." Anger rose immediately. Fix things? How could she possibly think any of this was fixable? There was nothing she could do to make it right. My eyes stayed on the screen as her message seemed to taunt me. Still lying, still twisting reality, still trying to make me feel responsible. I stood from my desk and walked to the window, staring out at the city below. There had been moments when life felt manageable, when control seemed possible. Now nothing felt solid. Everything had shifted, and I hadn't been ready for it. The betrayal cut deeper than expected. Family had always come first. Problems had always been handled quietly, and now every sacrifice felt meaningless. I didn't want this. I didn't want to confront her. I didn't want to face the truth that had been buried for so long. But there was no choice left. She had pulled me into this, and now I was the one left standing in the mess. The phone was back in my hand as I called Sarah. "Hey," she answered. "How's it going?" Concern was there, even if she tried to hide it. Explaining everything felt impossible. She knew the surface. This was deeper. "I need your help," I said. "I can't do this alone." "What happened?" Her voice sharpened with worry. "I need to confront her. I need to confront Linda. She's been lying to me, and I can't pretend anymore." Silence followed. Then, softly, "You don't have to do this alone. You know that." She meant well, but this wasn't something anyone could fix for me. This wasn't about her lies anymore. It was about taking my life back. "I don't know how to handle this," I admitted. It feels like I'm losing everything." "You're not losing anything," Sarah said. "You're gaining control. You're choosing yourself. Whatever happens, you can handle it." Her words landed hard, but they grounded me. She was right. This was my choice. Linda didn't get to control me anymore. "I'm calling her," I said, and ended the call before doubt could creep in. A deep breath, then I dialed Linda's number. 3 rings. She answered. "Emily," she said, guilt already layered into her voice. "I'm sorry, I was just trying to keep the family together." My grip tightened. "Enough. I know everything. The debts, the offshore accounts, all of it. Don't use family to manipulate me anymore. You lied, you used me, and I'm done." Silence. Heavy. Thick. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question cracked through despite my effort to stay calm. "Why didn't you trust me?" "I thought I could fix it," she said quietly. "I didn't want to burden you. You had your own life. I didn't want to ruin it." A bitter laugh escaped. "You already did." Another silence. "Please," she said, desperation bleeding through. "Let's talk in person. We can fix this." Eyes closed. The truth was clear now. She was never who I thought she was. I had spent years covering for her, protecting her image, pretending everything was fine. It never was. "I'm not coming back," I said, "and you can't fix this." The meeting with Jack came faster than expected. Too fast. I wasn't ready. He was already waiting when I arrived. No handshake, just a nod. "I've been digging deeper," he said, "and there's something else you need to know." I leaned forward. "This isn't just debt or assets. There's a third party involved, someone pushing her, pressuring her." Confusion tightened my chest. "Who?" "I don't know yet, but this involves intimidation, legal pressure, possibly worse." My heart skipped. "You're saying she's being threatened?" "Yes," he said, "manipulated. Someone powerful is involved. Your mother didn't act alone." Everything tilted. I had believed she was the one in control. Now that illusion cracked. What do I do? "You confront her, carefully, and understand this isn't just family drama anymore." Nausea rolled through me. "I have to talk to her," I said. "You do, but she may still protect whoever's behind this." Trust felt impossible now. "I don't know who to believe," I admitted. "I'll handle the legal side," Jack said. "The rest is your choice." Walking out, the world felt unfamiliar. Everything I thought I knew had been wrong. The phone buzzed again. Linda. "What do you want?" "Please," she said, breaking. "I was trying to protect you. You have to trust me." Eyes closed. "I don't trust you anymore," I said, "and I'm done letting you lie to me." Silence, then a whisper. "I'm sorry." It wasn't enough. "I'm done," I said, ending the call. What came next was unknown, but running was no longer an option. It was time to face the truth, no matter how much it hurt. The weight of the past few weeks hung heavy on me, but something had shifted. I was no longer the one running from the truth, hiding from the consequences. I couldn't afford to be passive anymore. The game had changed, and I was going to take control, no matter what it cost. I sat at my desk, looking at the pile of papers in front of me, the bank statements, the legal documents, the emails. Everything was evidence of the mess my mother had gotten us into. But it wasn't just her. It was the entire family. For years, I had allowed them to treat me like the responsible one, the one who would clean up the messes they made. But not anymore. My phone buzzed. It was from Linda. "Emily, please listen. I don't know how much longer I can hold everything together. You're all I have left." I stared at the message, my fingers hovering over the screen. She wanted me to fix things again, to step back into the role of the savior. I'd done it before. I had tried. But now I knew better. "Mom, I'm done. I can't keep doing this for you," I typed, my hands shaking as I sent the message. I took a deep breath. I wasn't going to back down. I had worked too hard to rebuild my life to let her drag me back into her mess. The next step was clear. I needed help, professional help. I called Jack Wilkins. "Emily," his voice crackled over the line, "are you ready to take action?" "I need everything, Jack," I said, my voice steady. "I'm going to confront her, but I need to make sure I'm legally protected. I want to go after the truth. No more lies." I could hear him smile through the phone. "Good. It's time." The next few days were a blur of phone calls, meetings, and plans. Every time I thought I had a handle on it, something new would come up. A new piece of information, a new threat from my mother, a new reason for me to doubt everything I had believed in. But I kept pushing forward. It was strange, this feeling of power I was starting to reclaim. For so long, I had been the one who held everything together, the one who had to make sense of the chaos. But now, I wasn't the one picking up the pieces anymore. I was the one making the decisions. I was the one in control. By the time I had everything lined up, I felt ready. I wasn't going to just confront Linda. I was going to confront her with the full weight of the truth. I had the documents, the evidence, and the legal backing to make sure she couldn't spin this one into another story about how the world was against her. I called her again, this time with no intention of backing down. "Mom," I said when she answered, "we need to talk. I have everything I need to expose the truth." "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice defensive, trying to cover the fear I knew was there. "You don't know everything, Emily. You don't know what I've been through." "No, you don't get to pull that on me anymore," I snapped. "You don't get to make me feel guilty for your mistakes. I've found everything, Mom. All the lies, the debts, the things you've kept from me. It's all coming out." There was a long silence, and for a moment I thought she might hang up. But then I heard her voice, this time softer, more desperate. "Emily, please, you have to understand. I did this to protect you. I didn't want you to know how deep it really went." I felt the anger rise in my chest again. "Protect me? You've been lying to me for years, and you think that's protection? You think keeping me in the dark was protecting me?" "I didn't know how to fix it," she said, her voice breaking. "I didn't want you to see me like this. I didn't want to lose you, too." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. This wasn't going to be easy. But I was done with being her shield. I was done protecting her from the consequences of her own actions. "I'm not going to fix this for you, Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You've made your choices. Now you have to deal with the consequences. I'm not your savior anymore." I waited for her to respond, but she didn't. Instead, there was a click on the line. I stood there, staring at the phone in my hand as the silence stretched on. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had finally taken control. I wasn't just reacting to the chaos anymore. I was creating my own path. But as the days went on, the pressure didn't stop. My mother continued to send messages, trying to convince me to meet, to talk things through. But I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to fall for her manipulation anymore. The battle was far from over, and I knew it. There were still so many pieces of the puzzle left to fit together, so many lies to expose. But I was no longer afraid. I was ready. And so, when the time came for the final confrontation, I knew I would be ready to face her, no matter what it cost me. Because this time, I wasn't backing down. The weeks following my confrontation with Linda passed in a blur. I had finally taken control of the situation, but the aftermath hit harder than I expected. It wasn't just the weight of the truth that dragged me down, it was the consequences of it all. Linda's deceit had been exposed, her financial manipulations, the lies she had spun to keep me in the dark. They were all out in the open now. I had handed over the evidence to the authorities, and soon after, the legal process began. I didn't feel relieved. There was no satisfaction in seeing her face the consequences. The truth was clear, but the pain lingered. I had always tried to shield Linda from the fallout, even when I knew she had been wrong. But when the truth came crashing down, there was no more space for mercy. She had to face the repercussions, not just from the law, but from the people she had deceived, me included. The phone calls stopped coming from Linda. It was strange, almost eerie. For years, I had been used to her constant demands, her manipulations. But now, she was silent. There were no more desperate texts asking for forgiveness, no more pleading for me to come back. It was as if the air had been cleared, but the emptiness that followed was just as heavy. I had spent my entire life trying to please her, trying to fix everything she broke. But now, I was done. There was no going back, no more forgiving her actions. It wasn't even about her anymore. It was about me, about what I needed to do to move forward. I didn't reach out to anyone in the family either. They had all remained quiet after the truth came out, some too uncomfortable to speak, others perhaps too scared of taking sides. The only one who tried to reach out was Sarah. She had been the one constant through all of this, the only person who didn't try to excuse Linda's actions. "How are you holding up?" she asked one evening, her voice soft but filled with concern. "I'm fine," I said, though it didn't feel true. "I'm just done with it all, Sarah. I can't keep letting them pull me in. I've tried to fix things for years, but now it's not my job anymore." She was silent for a moment. "I understand, but you don't have to do this alone. You've always been strong, Emily, but strength isn't just about carrying the weight for everyone else. It's about knowing when to let go." Her words stayed with me, and for the first time, I realized she was right. I didn't have to carry this weight any longer. Linda had made her choices, and now it was my turn to make mine. I began to make plans. I couldn't stay in the same place, surrounded by reminders of everything that had happened. I needed a fresh start, a clean slate. It wasn't going to be easy, but I had to move on. My work had been the one thing that kept me grounded throughout all of this, so I threw myself into it. But I knew that work wasn't enough. I needed something more. I needed to find a new purpose. I'd spent so many years living in the shadows of my family's problems, but now I was ready to step into the light. I wasn't going to let their mistakes define me anymore. A few weeks later, I signed up for a weekend trip to a retreat in the mountains. It wasn't much, just a small cabin retreat for a few days, but it felt like the right thing to do. I needed to get away from everything, away from the constant calls and messages, away from the memories that still haunted me. It was time to start healing. I arrived at the cabin early in the morning. The air was crisp, and the scenery was more beautiful than I had expected. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of peace that had been absent from my life for far too long. The mountains were massive, towering above me like they had been there forever, unshaken by time. It felt like the perfect place to clear my head, to reset. As I walked along the trail, I realized that this was the beginning of something new. The past would always be a part of me, but it no longer had to define my future. I wasn't going to let it. Over the next few days, I learned new things about myself. I realized that I had been living for other people for so long that I had forgotten what it meant to live for myself. I spent time reading, reflecting, and connecting with others who were on their own journeys of healing. It wasn't an instant fix, but it was a start. When I returned home, everything felt different. The apartment felt less like a place of confinement and more like a space where I could build the life I wanted. I had taken the first step toward reclaiming my power. Linda's consequences had been severe, but I wasn't going to sit around and wait for them to define my life. I couldn't change what she had done, but I could change how I moved forward. I continued with my work, but I also started to look into other opportunities. I signed up for a few courses that interested me, and I started getting involved in a few local community projects. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was living for myself. I knew I had a long way to go, but I was no longer afraid. I had taken back control, and I wasn't going to let anyone, especially my family, take that from me again. The path ahead was uncertain, but it was mine to choose, and for the first time in years, I felt free.